This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
We
are
Cultivate.
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 We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hello. This is going to be our early Halloween episode, because Halloween will be the day after this episode comes out. So technically it's a Halloween episode.
Isn't it like Hallows Eve then, right? No, Mischief Night. It comes out during Mischief Night.
Nice.
So to all of those that celebrate that, don't. Rude.
Instead, listen to our podcast.
Yeah, just hang out with us instead. We're more fun.
So we are each going to be discussing a cryptid. And I'm not going to say what we did. I am just going to list the sources, and I will let you and I say what they are as we go and discuss them. Ooh, it's a mystery.
A mystery.
Unless you read the title of the episode.
And open the links to the show notes.
All right. So information was pulled from the following sources. The 2023 Reality is Weird article by Willow, 2022 Atlas Obscura article by J.W. Walker, 2022 Indalinga African Journal of Indigenous Knowledge Systems article by Zimkitha Sibam Twalo and Yassine Ali, 2021 Coffeehouse Writers article by V.L. Jones, 2019 Pennsylvania Wilds article by Lou Bernard, 2018 Mythology article by Professor Geller, 2017 North American Cryptids article, 2014 Games Radar article by Lucas Sullivan, 2011 Africa Road Travel Post, Cryptid Channel YouTube video, 2 Cryptid Wiki links, Dictionary.com, Paranormal Catalog article, and Wikipedia. Thank you, as always, to Carrie Ann for her research assistance for this episode, and links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Ye Olde Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
All right. So we can just open the corrections cubby right now, just because it's me, and I don't normally do these, so buckle up, everyone. Including me. So the cryptid that I picked was the Tokoloshe. Prior to looking it up, I had no idea, and I just really liked the name. I thought it was like a fun alliteration, Tokoloshe. They're not fun. They're not fun creatures.
They're not.
Most cryptids are not, but this one it's not great. So the Tokoloshe originate from Bantu folklore, with some legends being mostly specifically kind of housed with the Xhosa people in Africa, and primarily southern Africa. The Tokoloshe are mischievous but typically malevolent creatures that are either super small humanoid in shape, so kind of think of like a gremlin or
Mhm.
just like a tiny man that's like covered in hair, but they also are almost zombie-like. So they're like a reanimated body
Okay.
and can sometimes be like decaying, have like skeletal bony hands.
Ew.
Sometimes their eyes are gouged out, which is super fun.
Mm-mm.
And they all have a hole in their head, like one perfect hole in their head. And that's how they're actually created. So you either have the tiny gremlin creature, or in some other forms of the folklore, they're these huge, essentially almost like bear looking humanoid men. And those ones are more violent, like typically in towards adults and less of children. But all of them are believed to be created by rituals from shamans who have been offended by the person. So like the Tokoloshe really offended the shaman in some way, and so they do this ritual and they put a hot poker through their heads, and that's how they can reanimate them and control them.
Hmm.
So a lot of their like like their cuts and like decaying things are varying levels of the shamans like messing on them too, like messing with the body before they reanimate it, which is super cute.
Hmm.
So in terms of violence and like mischievous, they essentially are just known for causing havoc psychologically, physically, and sexually, which
Mm-hmm.
is super fun and a twist that you don't normally hear a lot with cryptids. Like normally it's just like I'm gonna kill you and eat you and
Mm-hmm.
like absorb your soul. No, these guys they kind of do all of it, which is super fun.
Mm-hmm.
So they're known throughout Africa primarily, but they're really prolific in South Africa and Lesotho. They're known to be wandering creatures. They are known to be super, super fast. And they have this cute little thing where they can become invisible. And
Mm-hmm.
there's two different ways that they can become invisible. One report is if they eat like a pebble or like ingest a small rock, they turn invisible. Another one, a few other reports say that they turn invisible if they suck on a type of stone, like a particular type of stone. So,
Mm.
regardless, they
Something with the
have
stone.
like invisibility based on their pika habits, like their eating habits, which is super fun. But they love to mess with children in particular. They really like to kind of get them in trouble. They'll poke them and scare them, or they'll chase them if they see small children. But typically, when it comes to children, they're just kind of irritating, like a
Mm-hmm.
sibling that takes your clothes or like will throw your food on the floor or will mess with you while you're sleeping. Like
Mm.
they're more kind of annoying and almost like used as a warning, like you better be nice, like better be a good kid, otherwise the Tokoloshe are gonna come and they're gonna mess with
Mm-hmm.
you. But when it comes to people, typically Tokoloshe, the ones that aren't directed towards children, are known more as being controlled by an evil witch doctor or an evil witch mistress. So those are typically created on purpose and used to attack a particular person. And so
Okay.
those ones are way more intense and they come at night and they wreck your home. They mess with people, like anyone in your home that's asleep. They can scratch you, they can cause illness, and they can maim you. They also like rape and kill their victims too. Some of the illnesses that they're reported to kind of put on their victims is vomiting until death, or they become infertile, or they can't get out of bed, their legs stop working, like just really intense ailments. Like it's nothing like, oh, I got a cold, it's a Tokoloshe. It's like, oh no, I can't have children because of
Yeah.
Tokoloshe, like really extreme. One thing you can do potentially if you have an idea that a Tokoloshe might be attached to your space or your home is you can offer them sweet foods, but apparently those sweets cannot contain any salt at all because salt is used to warding them. And there's a specific type of Tokoloshe specific salts. They come in different colors and they're blessed by different witch doctors with varying degrees of like what kind of activity is it? Is it more of like a Tokoloshe that's a poltergeist and just kind of like messing with your stuff, or is this a super violent Tokoloshe that is like coming to fuck your shit up and ruin your life? So they have different salts with different colors that you can purchase to try to help exercise your space. One of the pieces with the larger Tokoloshe is they are known for having giant penises, and like penises so large that they like sling them over their shoulders when they're walking around because they just can't, it's just too big. And they are kept docile and subservient by their evil witch mistress with frequent sex and being fed milk and like warm foods. So like you just have sex with them and feed them a nice warm meal and they'll be your slave to do your evil bidding, I guess. Which is
Nice.
I mean, if you're in the business of having somebody like that, the Tokoloshe are an option for you.
Cool.
You just gotta perform a ritual and reanimate a dead body with a hot poker. So if you have a Tokoloshe in your home, one of the things you can do to kind of temporarily keep yourself safe at night is by lifting your bed. This is for the Tokoloshe that are smaller and gremlin sized, but they if you stack your bed on bricks, apparently it like saves you temporarily, but it doesn't necessarily save your home. So like you might be safe and not getting scratched or anything, but like your kitchen is all messed up the next day or like there's stuff missing. And so it's kind of a temporary fix. But a lot of the predominantly white South African homes in particular would always have beds that were resting on beds of bricks. So like they were super superstitious of the Tokoloshe. And one of the risks you have by playing out of reach instead of fully exercising the home is they could they poison you and just kill you that way like, the next time. So there are two kind of viewpoints of the Tokoloshe. The Xhosa people, they really see them more as kind of mischievous spirits that are just kind of irritating. They usually create small problems in your life, but it's not that big of a deal. Whereas Zulu mythology, they believe that Tokoloshes are actually created from the bodies of dead shamans by witch doctors and witch mistresses. And those are sent directly to harm children and rape women.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I kind of like the Xhosa people's perspective on it. I don't want the giant bear-like guys. I'd rather have the little gremlins that you can ply with sweets.
And bricks.
Sweets and bricks. Yes. But one of the final pieces, if you need to exercise a Tokoloshe infestation, is you have to destroy the muthi, which is a blend. It's essentially kind of like what would be in a witch's pot to create the magic serum to create them. So it's like a blend of herbs, different oils, and then like pieces of animals, like animal sacrifices. And the muthi is typically buried somewhere close to wherever the Tokoloshe is attacking. So if you if you think you have a Tokoloshe infestation, you should go see if there's any like recently buried or like mixed with dirt near your house. And because if you get rid of that, you can give that to a singoma or a witch doctor, and they can properly dispose of that and help exorcise your house. Yeah, there's really no good, like, if you get one of these guys, it's kind of hard to get rid of them until you're like dead or you leave. From the sounds of it, they're just pretty wicked.
Persistent.
And the biggest risk too with them, because they can travel, it's like even more terrifying, because it's like a poltergeist that moves, that isn't restricted to one space necessarily. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that's the Tokoloshe, essentially.
Giant
bear men
with big dicks.
Giant dicked bear men, or tiny gremlins with also large dicks for their size. Could you imagine the tiny gremlins with the dicks over their shoulder? That'd be just as scary.
It's a backpack.
It's a fanny pack. The sling.
So I picked the Thunderbird.
Ooh.
And typically in legends, creatures like the Thunderbird are relegated to a specific region or even to a particular people. But in regards to the Thunderbird, it has appeared in several forms amongst numerous tribes across the whole of North America. So like from Canada all the way to South America.
Yeah. Kind of makes it a little more real.
In fact, many tribes view it as a great and powerful protector. And like I just said, tales of them can be found as far south as Central America and all the way into northern Canada and Alaska.
That's crazy.
The creature lives primarily in forests, although different tribes have their own ideas on where they live. This large bird of prey has been described as carnivorous and large enough to attack and abduct calves, dogs, and even children. Thunderbirds were said to be so large that when they flapped their wings, which had a wingspan of about 70 feet.
Oh my God.
That it created the sound of thunder.
Yeah, I bet.
And lightning would flash out of their eyes and water would roll off their backs, which caused the rain to fall. And to further illustrate the size of this creature, many believe that a single feather was so large that it needed to be folded in half so it could properly fit into a quiver of arrows.
Crazy.
The Thunderbird was also so big that it could easily pick up a whale with its talons, making them an easy and favorite source of food. That comes up a lot in some of the legends.
The Thunderbirds just regularly ate whale?
Yep.
Dang.
And contrary to what you may think, the Thunderbirds of Native American mythology had brightly colored feathers, in addition to their long claws and teeth. So they had teeth in their beaks.
Absolutely not. There are a few birds that do that, right?
There are a few birds with teeth, but yeah.
Oh God, I hate it.
Some tales state that the birds were so big that they could carry entire lakes on their back, and the rain would fall from their backs as the water sloshed out of the lakes during their flights.
Interesting.
So now I'm going to kind of go through the different tribes and their different takes on the Thunderbird.
Okay.
So for the Algonquin, who occupy the Northeast, including Ontario, Quebec, and further east, as well as the northeastern United States, the Thunderbird is extremely prevalent in their mythology as they hold a deep reverence for it. In addition to the Algonquin, the Iroquois peoples who live around the Great Lakes and people who speak Algonquin in that area also hold the same beliefs. And part of these beliefs are that Thunderbirds are some of mankind's ancestors, and they played a part in the creation of the universe.
That would make sense if they were big enough to, like, essentially create lakes and stuff with their bodies. Yeah, of course you would think that they would be part of the bigger picture.
In this mythology, the Thunderbird rules and protects the upper world to protect it from the gods that rule the underworld, such as the underwater panther and the great horned serpent. Using the thunder it generates with its massive wings and lightning, it casts out the monsters that lurk in the depths. The Thunderbird iconography for the Algonquin is that of a spread-eagled bird with its wings horizontal to the head, so kind of like that.
Oh, yeah.
And although its head is often depicted in profile, there are just as many depictions of it facing forward, giving the Thunderbird the shape of an X. And the Ojibwe peoples of Wisconsin believe that Nanabozo, who is a hero figure, created the Thunderbird to battle the spirits of the underwater.
Yeah.
So these benevolent creatures live in the four directions and migrate with the birds, appearing in the springtime and traveling south in the fall at the close of the underwater spirit's most hostile and dangerous season. And in this version of the myth, Thunderbirds can also punish those who have broken moral rules. And we'll kind of come back to that.
Okay.
And depictions of the Thunderbird were found on an Ojibwe Midewiwin disc. I tried. That is believed to date back to sometime between 1250 and 1400 CE.
Wow.
And pictographs of the creature often vary, going from an obvious picture of a bird to nothing more than an X shape. The Menominee peoples of northern Wisconsin tell tales of a giant floating mountain in the western sky upon which the Thunderbirds live. These creatures control not only rain, but hail, and proudly delight in fighting and committing great deeds. They are the sworn enemy of the Missikinibik, or the great horned snakes, and as messengers of the great sun, they work to prevent the serpents of the underwater from overrunning the upper world to destroy man.
Nice.
Near Twin Bluffs, Wisconsin, petroglyphs depicting the Thunderbird date as far back as 250 BCE, or more recently, sometime in the 1500s. The Thunderbird legend is also seen amongst the Siouan-speaking peoples of the Great Lake area, and the Ho-Chunk version of the tale notes if a man who is taking part in a solitary fast is granted a vision of the Thunderbird, he is destined to become the next war chief of his people. And this belief is also seen with the Winnebago peoples.
Nice. So the Thunderbird is essentially the opposite of the Tokoloshe. They're like a good omen, and they're protecting people and keeping them safe instead of like ruining lives.
Wrecking their day. Other tribes, such as the Lakota, Sioux, Anishinaabe, Arapaho, Gros-Ventre, Potawatomi, also have their own versions of the Thunderbird legend. The Sioux tribe of South Dakota, for example, viewed the Thunderbird as a powerful protector that kept Unktehi away during the old times. In this legend, the Thunderbird Wakantanka was the grandson of the great Thunderbird that had helped to create the world and birth man. Everything would have been fine had Unktehi not intervened, for she thought mankind were parasites, and her followers, who were extremely dangerous reptilian monsters, attempted to drown mankind. Terrified, people retreated to the top of the highest hill they could find, praying for peace. It was Wakantanka who heard their cries and came to fight Unktehi so she would leave the people alone.
Nice.
Wakantanka used lightning to split open the earth, and without the help of the Thunderbird, mankind would have been lost to Unktehi and her Unktehila.
Do you think a few of those lizard people still exist today, and that's why we have so much trouble?
That's why
Yeah.
we need Wakantanka.
Mm-hmm.
The Arapaho view the Thunderbird as a summer creature that occupies the Great Plains. He is the polar opposite of the white owl, who represents winter.
Okay. Yeah.
The legend of the Passamaquoddy tribe of Maine shares the story of two warriors who set off on a quest high in the mountains in search of Thunder's source. Their journey led them north until they reached a large mountain that was magically able to pull itself slowly apart and then quickly smash itself back together.
No, that's too Mario for me. I can't.
Yeah. As they crossed the mountain pass, they vowed to each other that they would continue the mission no matter what. The first warrior was able to safely make it through the pass, but the second was crushed by the rocks as they collided once more. After reaching the other side, the surviving warrior discovered a large plain and a group of wigwams, next to which a group of Indians were playing some sort of game. He watched them play for a time before they decided they were done. At that point, they entered their wigwams, where they donned wings before they flew back over the mountains all the way to the south. The warrior noticed that some elders remained at the camp, and upon seeing him, they asked how he had managed to find their camp. He expressed his desire to learn where thunder came from, and the elders conversed with one another for a while until they decided on a way to help the warrior understand. They called him over and placed him inside a large mortar. They then proceeded to pound all of his bones until they were broken, and a new body was then formed for the warrior, complete with a set of wings like a thunderbird.
No, this is too human centipede, like Saw. I can't. This turned into a horror film.
After he was reformed, they gave the young warrior a bow and arrows before sending him back the way he came.
Wouldn't it be messed up if they were made with like his bones?
Oh, God.
Here's some extra bones that we just couldn't reform. You can use them as
Yeah.
weapons.
There you go. Other tales involve a thunderbird battling against a huge killer whale, during which much of the land was destroyed. Trees were mown down, and it caused a great deal of destruction. This legend closely mimics one that states a thunderbird was fighting Mimlos whale during a great flood that covered the entirety of the world. The fight was long and brutal, and the thunderbird would dig its claws into Mimlos whale before dragging it to his nest high atop a mountain. However, every time he reached the nest, Mimlos whale would manage to wriggle free, returning to the water below. The battle was a constant back and forth, during which the mountains would shake and trees would be uprooted. The battle commenced until finally, exhausted, the thunderbird relented, allowing Mimlos whale to return to the sea while he returned to his mountaintop. And the whale in this tale is thought to be a killer whale, so an orca.
That's crazy.
The Comanche, Chippewa, and Mandan viewed the thunderbird, whose size was said to be large enough to blot out the sun. They believed that it caused storms. Although benevolent, as I've mentioned, they could be unintentionally destructive when fighting giant snakes or killer whales by destroying forests as well as creating huge dust storms.
Yeah. I would love it'd be really cool to somehow figure out a way where you can trace back weather events and like and then see what they interpreted them as fighting. Was it a whale or was it a snake or like that would be so cool.
There were stories, though, that the Thunderbird isn't just one massive godlike entity, but instead a whole tribe of people. Some cultures even believe that they married into human families and that its offspring can be traced to the present day.
That makes sense with a lot of them saying that like they were leaders or warriors at one point. Like those men that got their wings. They were warriors that transformed.
Now, you may be wondering how a gigantic bird could disguise itself as a human, but they have the ability to shapeshift. By removing their feathers, a process that apparently is like taking off and putting on a blanket, and tipping their beaks up over their heads like a mask, they can then transform enough to walk amongst mankind without drawing any attention to themselves.
Interesting.
And in order to transform back to their godlike form, they pull their beak back where it was originally and once more don their feathers. The Shawnee peoples believed that thunderbirds could shapeshift, but that they would appear as boys. And you could always tell the person was a thunderbird due to their tendency to speak backwards.
That would be terrifying. To see like a little boy just speaking backwards at you.
No thanks. And going back to the thunderbird's appearance, there are other stories that suggest the thunderbird had a second face that was located in the middle of its chest. It's unclear if this second head was avian in nature or was in fact a set of two glowing snakes that he reportedly carried with him.
Oh.
The snakes were apparently responsible for creating the lightning bolts that filled the sky upon his arrival. Now, I'm unclear which people created this next legend, but it goes as follows. A hunter living in Beaver Prairie stumbled upon the kill of a thunderbird while he was out looking for food.
Hmm.
It was a huge whale that had been carried deep into the prairie, and the whale was so huge that the thunderbird needed to take a break and take a nap before resuming its flight to the top of the mountain so he could eat it.
Dang.
Unable to believe his good luck, the hunter took a feather from the wing of the thunderbird and returned to his village.
That was dumb.
Upon his return, he told his people about the discovery of the thunderbird and showed them the feather. The feather was said to be as long as a canoe paddle, and when he explained that a huge whale was sitting dead in the prairie, he was able to rally a number of the beach and river tribes to work together to cut up the whale so they could feast on it themselves.
Oh no.
All the beach and river tribes came together, and in their eager and greedy excitement, they chopped up the whole whale, which they proceeded to eat until there was nothing left.
No, you're gonna have a hangry Thunderbird. No. No.
Suddenly, the sky began to blacken and clouds rolled in. This was a sign that the thunderbird was returning for its kill, and not only that, but it was angry with them for stealing his food and eating it while he was sleeping.
Right.
To punish them, he caused a great storm of rain that soon transformed into hail that was larger than a man's fist. The hail came down hard and fast and killed anyone it hit. After the storm died down, the thunderbird gazed upon those who had stolen from him and turned each and every one of them, even the pieces of meat, into stone.
Dang.
Thunderbirds are understandably viewed as nature spirits and have been known to assist the native peoples in the Pacific region during times of famine as they search for food. They are also known to dish out harsh punishments to those who have done wrong or acted immorally, such as the last story.
Yeah.
Another example of a thunderbird doling out vengeance is that of a thunderbird becoming so angry with the, I'm going to say this wrong and I apologize in advance, the Quileute, that he caused a great flood. The oceans rose so high that the people had to get into their boats to seek shelter. The water levels rose so high that the tops of the highest mountains were lost to its depths, and the flooding persisted for 4 days. Throughout that time,
Crazy.
the Quileute were forced to sail without the sun or landmarks to guide them. When they were finally able to find land, the people had been scattered. Some ended up in Ho, others in Chimacum, where they chose to stay as they were no longer able to find their way back to Quileute.
Mm.
North Dakota likes to claim their state as the home of the thunderbird.
Interesting.
This claim comes from the discovery and preservation of the Riding Rocks State Historic Site, which is located where North Dakota borders Montana and Saskatchewan, Canada. The Riding Rocks are small granite boulders, about 4 feet wide, that include petroglyphs of thunderbirds that are believed to be from 300 to 1,000 years old.
Awesome.
As a symbol, the thunderbird has commonly been found on totem poles and as part of petroglyphs. Fun fact, igneous rocks have been referred to as thunderstones in relation to the legend of the thunderbird and are considered the eggs of thunderbirds.
Interesting. That's kind of cute.
Many historians believe that the thunderbird was created as a way for the indigenous peoples to understand and explain what was happening around them in nature, which is
Yeah.
the point of many creation myths,
Right.
and that the thunderbird can control life and death through its gifts.
Mhm.
Thunderbirds aren't simply relegated to myths and legends. Sightings have also been detected in the 19th and 20th centuries. Robert Lyman's book, Amazing Indeed, includes a number of sightings from the 1800s. Elvira Coates notes tales of the thunderbird from her indigenous neighbors in Potter County, Pennsylvania, and Lewis Sheldon, who was an early pioneer of Potter County, was an eyewitness that claimed to have seen flocks of 5 to 6 thunderbirds at one time.
Oh my God. Could you imagine? That'd be terrifying.
I would shit myself.
Because even if they're babies, they're like what? The size of a killer whale as a baby? Like,
Yeah. One of the most famous sightings took place in 1890 in Arizona. 2 cowboys claimed to have shot and killed a large bird that had a head similar to an alligator, and this large bird had no feathers. The pair were said to have dragged the bird to the nearest town after they shot it, and others described it as looking more like a pterodactyl or even a dragon than what we would classify as a bird.
Oh.
There is said to be a photo of a potential Thunderbird where men who managed to kill one nailed it to a barn with its wings extended before posing in front of it. This is known as the lost Thunderbird photo, as it has since gone missing.
That's still kind of awful. Like, I really
Yeah.
hate that they did
Yeah.
that to the body.
In 1892, Fred Murray documented a sighting of a flock of Thunderbirds near Dents Run in Cameron County, Pennsylvania, where he described them as looking similar to buzzards, only with 16-foot wingspans.
Yeah.
A Thunderbird sighting from the mid-1900s near Jersey Shore, Lycoming County, Pennsylvania, compared its size to that of a plane. The next big sighting took place in Lawndale, Illinois on July 25, 1977. Known as the Thunderbird attack, it involved the attempted abduction of 10-year-old Marlon Lowe, who had been playing outside his home around 8 p.m. when he was suddenly attacked by two large birds. During the attack, one of the birds managed to pick him up, he weighed about 56 pounds, and carried him over 30 feet before his mother, Ruth Lowe, who had been cleaning in the kitchen, was able to run to her son's rescue, managing to scare the birds away in order to save her son.
Terrifying.
The attack was seen by several eyewitnesses, and the birds were described as having a 4.5-foot tall body that was black with a white ring around their necks, a 6-inch hooked bill, 3 front claws, 1 back claw, and wings that each spanned around 4 feet in length, although some claims stated the wingspan was more like 9 to 10 feet.
Okay.
As recent as 2010, 2 witnesses that summer spotted a, quote, large bird with a very long beak, end quote, near Coudersport Pike, which is north of Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. A few years later, in June of 2012, 2 girls saw a Thunderbird near their campsite in Chapman Township, Pennsylvania. The bird, which was believed to have a 14-foot wingspan and did not have feathers on its head, swooped low over their camp, chasing the girls into their cabin. On May 24th, 2013, 2 friends were walking through the woods in Pennsylvania when a loud noise above them startled them. After looking up, they were met with the sight of a large black bird that was around 4 feet tall with wings that spanned about 10 feet.
No.
Yeah. There are a couple other sightings I found mentioned, but couldn't find a concrete date. One is a report in July from a man in Fort, Illinois, who reported seeing a massive bird whose wings stretched the length of a barn. It had deep black feathers and claws large enough that he was sure they could snatch a person.
No.
Another report comes from a group of students who were in the midst of a field program near the Great Lakes when a large bird circled above them, its wings so large that the shadow it cast upon the ground was enough to be seen on the ground.
No.
Yeah. No thanks.
No. Absolutely not.
And the Thunderbirds of North America aren't the only mythological avians. Other examples of this cryptid include the Hindu legend of Garuda, the lightning bird of Africa, and thunder god Li Gong of China. So what are Thunderbirds? Like, what are they actually? Some historians and folklorists, such as American scientist and folklorist Adrian Mayer and British historian Tom Holland, believe it likely that the stories regarding the Thunderbird come from the potential discovery by the indigenous peoples of pterosaur fossils.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And there are some theories that Thunderbirds are actually a form of modern-day pterotorn, or megafauna, which has a wingspan up to 20 feet.
Ew.
This seems unlikely, however, since there has yet to be any verified sightings of any flying birds that are larger than a wandering albatross, which can be from 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall with a wingspan of 12 feet, or a Californian condor, which can be 4 feet tall but have a wingspan of 10 feet. So those are the 2 largest flying birds in the world.
I can't imagine those even. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Another theory is that they are in fact pterosaurs, but considering those have been extinct since the late Cretaceous period, which took place 66 million years ago, this theory seems highly unlikely. The fossils theory holds water, however, due to the fact that pterodactyls had teeth, which was noted across the board in the various legends surrounding thunderbirds. A con to this theory is that pterosaurs have wings more similar to that of a bat, whereas in the thunderbird descriptions they have wings that are feathered and more like
Yeah,
a
but
bird.
that could just be their own preference potentially, because maybe they have never seen a bat that big, but they've seen a bird that could get that big. So it would,
That's true.
because they said that they were bald.
Hmm.
So if they were bald, they would just assume that they lost their feathers, not that they didn't have them to begin with.
So if we go back to condors, there's the Andean condor and the African crowned eagle, which average 31 to 39 inches tall and has a wingspan of 5 to 6 feet, which could be the cause of thunderbird sightings. The Andean condor, for example, lives in areas of the Andes Mountains along the Pacific coast of western South America, but has also been known to live in lowland deserts and open grasslands.
Okay.
One of the biggest supporters of thunderbirds in regards to advocating for their existence is a man named Hiram Cranmer, who was a retired postmaster that lived in Leedy Township, Clinton County, Pennsylvania. A huge supporter of the unknown, he claimed to have seen his first thunderbird back in 1922 and spotted 4 others after then. He noted that they tend to live in northern Clinton County and southern Potter County, which are both very remote areas of Pennsylvania.
That makes sense. They need the space.
And in regards to the missing Thunderbird photo, which I mentioned earlier, a researcher named Ivan Sanderson claims to have given the photo to Hiram Cranmer back in 1963 when he paid him a visit. But given that Hiram passed away when his home burned down in 1967,
Oh,
it's entirely possible that the photo, along with Hiram, was
burned.
lost in the blaze.
Yeah.
Scientists are skeptical of the Thunderbird's existence, given that there is no evidence to examine. There's no nests, no droppings, no feathers, or remains. And not only that, but if a bird that size truly exists, what sort of ecosystem does it currently live in that is able to sustain it?
Right.
And lastly, in pop culture, the legendary Pokemon Zapdos from the Kanto region is based on the Thunderbird, not to mention the Ford Thunderbird car. Several sports teams are named after it, and it's been part of the badge and symbol of the Canadian Forces military police uniform since 1968.
Nice. I like that.
And that's the Thunderbird.
Awesome. Yeah, yours was much nicer. Protectors. And they're just hanging out, or they're like ancestors protecting you.
We love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
So this week's podcast plug is the Burnt Marshmallows Cozy Mysteries podcast. Gather around the campfire every Tuesday for a cozy mystery, hosted by Aurora Katie. This podcast will keep you company with a little mystery to solve by the end of each episode.
Nice.
It is part of the Darkcast Network, and we will have a link to it in the show notes. And Carrie Ann would like to know, what films give you nightmares?
It. That was the first one for me. Films that give me nightmares are like I'd say primarily thrillers. Like gory stuff will always give me nightmares, like any sort of zombie, anything. But it's the like heart racing
Yep.
pauses in some movies. Like it can even be just a drama. And like they're simulating like a panic attack or something, and I'm like, I can have a nightmare about having a panic attack that night. So yeah, I'd say the ones that have that kind of jump scare feeling or like the dread drop.
Yeah.
Those usually give me nightmares. How about you?
I don't like movies similar to you that like make my heart race. I don't like being anxious. So I don't like movies that have a lot of jump scares, like horror movies. And I also don't do well with like body horror and like excessive gore.
Yes.
I can't do it.
I can't either.
And as weird and probably as dumb as it sounds, I get nightmares from watching movies about the paranormal
Yeah.
in the sense of ghosts and poltergeists and stuff. And the reason
Yep.
I do is because I have experienced that kind of stuff, so I know that there is some truth to those kind of things, and that gives me anxiety and like gives me nightmares.
Yeah. Trigger stress dreams for sure.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. You can
So
give me
fun.
heart problems if you make me watch Paranormal Activity.
Oh
Hooray.
no.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, Castbox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
All right. On that note, what's something good you'd like to share?
I had my first day at my new job yesterday and it went really well.
Woo!
So far so good. I like it. I like the people. I'm learning a lot and it's fun. How about you?
I also started a new job yesterday.
Woo!
It's a contract position, but it's with a fun group of people. It's going to be doing stuff that I really enjoy doing, and I'm excited about it.
Yay.
So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yay to jobs.
Yay for jobs. And I'm also officially done at Pine Haven and the Great Pumpkin Trail for the season, which is sad, but also like I was ready to be done.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have my weekends back.
Right. Well, and you went hard knowing it was temporary. So I bet it's going to feel like your life will feel like a vacation for this week, regardless of your hours.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we?
Let's do it.
Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Madison.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.